Welcome to the Next Level Human podcast. As a human, you have a job to do. In fact, you have 4 jobs: to earn and manage money, to attain and maintain health and fitness, to build and sustain personal relationships, to find meaning and make a difference. None of these jobs are taught in school, and that is what this podcast is designed to do: to educate us all on living our most fulfilled lives through the mastery of these 4 jobs. I'm your host, Dr. Jade Teta, and I believe we are here living this life for 3 reasons and 3 reasons only: to learn, to teach, and to love. In this podcast, I will be learning, teaching, and loving right along with you. I'm grateful to have your company. Here's to our next level. It's time to talk about one of our sponsors of today's episode, AG1 by Athletic Greens. Now, many of you have heard me say this before, but I am not a fan of vegetables, which I know is funny given I've been in the health and fitness industry for so long. I blame my mother and father for this. When I was a kid, what they would do was essentially take the broccoli, the Brussels sprouts, the spinach, the collard greens, and just steam them. No salt, no fat, no taste whatsoever, just these bitter greens. And so I developed a distaste for a lot of different vegetables, which has stayed with me into adulthood. One of the things I've done to mitigate that is use a greens powder pretty much ever since greens powders have come out on the market. And I've tried every single one. They started out tasting like swamp water. I found a few that I really like the taste, but recently, one that I have been taking for a very long time, as you all know, I wear a continuous glucose monitor. I found that it was actually spiking my blood sugar because probably the tapioca starch in it, which some people don't respond to tapioca starch with elevated blood sugars. I was. And so it sent me on a mission to find another one. And one of my friends turned me on to AG1 by Athletic Greens. Now, I've heard about Athletic Greens and AG1 for quite some time. I just never tried it. And now that I have tried it, I have become a huge fan, so much so that I partnered with Athletic Greens and AG1 to sponsor this podcast. Now, let me tell you what happened here. After I saw that my blood sugars were spiking, my friend gave me a couple samples of AG1. I began using those and testing the blood sugar and found there was no spike. The other thing I found is that AG1 is interested in its taste profile. It's very neutral. The one I was taking before was a little sweet. I really loved it. But this one is very neutral, which actually suits me because what I found is I can actually not only take this first thing in the morning in water and have it taste very neutral, almost like there's nothing there. I can also add it into my protein shakes, which means now I'm getting double the greens that I was getting previously because I add this right into my protein shakes and it does not change the flavor of the shake at all. The other thing I realized once I started looking at the label is that this product is not simply a greens product. It also is a multivitamin, multimineral. It also has fiber, which acts as a prebiotic. It has probiotics in it, and it has functional mushrooms, which act as adaptogens in it. That's 4 different products essentially in one. And I've been taking mushrooms for some time. I stopped taking them now because now I have this in my greens. I have also taken my multivitamin and make this my multivitamin. So I'm actually saving money, and this is going to save you money as well. The product AG1 is also NSF certified. And you're going to say, Jade, what does that mean? The National Sanitation Foundation is a foundation that essentially does testing on products to make sure there are no harmful substances, no persistent organic pollutants, no heavy metals. Now, this costs money to do. AG1 and Athletic Greens has spent the money on this. They spend money on making sure that the product that you are getting is good quality without contamination in it. And you might say, well, Jade, isn't this true of all products? And actually, no, it is not. If you ever follow some of the news in this area through consumer labs and other things that do testing on these products, you'll see that many of them will have trace levels of things like mercury and cadmium and lead and things like that in them because they're not doing this testing. So this is an extra piece of insurance for us. The other thing I love about this product that I learned as I was doing my research on it is that this is the 52nd tweak or adjustment they have made to this product in their existence. AG1 has been tweaked 52 times. Now you might say, well, Jade, why would they be doing that? And the reason why is because they continue to improve. We know that science is evolving. We know that it's not just about more nutrients. It's about balanced nutrients. It's about the Goldilocks effect of this. And they are constantly learning, as we all are, and then constantly adjusting their product to taste better, to be more efficient and effective in delivering the nutrients. It acts as an antioxidant. It acts as a multivitamin. It's a prebiotic, a probiotic, and an adaptogen all in one. They have mastered this over several iterations of this particular product. And so I am a huge fan right now of AG1 and Athletic Greens. And I'm hoping that you will check this out. It's time for all of us to reclaim our health and arm our immune system with convenient daily nutrition. And AG1 does that with just one scoop in a cup of water every single day. That is all you need. There is now no longer a need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. All you need is this particular one. It really clears the stage to simplify your supplement regime. To make it easy for you, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/next level. That's athleticgreens.com/next level to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Check out AG1. I love it. I know you're going to love it. And I'm so happy that they are on board to sponsor the podcast as well. Thanks so much. Check out AG1, athleticgreens.com/next level. And let's get to the show. All right, everybody, welcome to today's show. Today actually is a special show because I have a friend of mine, local here to Asheville. And you know what, Darly, I'm realizing I don't know your last name, actually. What is your
Hernandez.
last name? So Darly Hernandez. And this is sort of what you're going to get with the conversation with me and Darly today is two friends, both people who are sort of experts in the health and fitness industry. But one coming at this from Darly is from Mexico, built her first business in Mexico. And we were like, hey, let's get on and have a discussion about what's different about marketing in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so we're both going to learn some things, and hopefully you'll learn some things from the discussion. And so one of the reasons that we decided to do this is Darly's like, I'd love to just sit and talk about business and the differences perhaps in Mexico. And I'll let her explain it here in a minute when we start getting into it. So this really is just two friends talking, and you all are able to sort of jump in. And I'm going to try to help Darly, sort of decipher some of what goes on in American marketing. And hopefully we'll learn some things from her because she's got a pretty successful business in Mexico and trying to bring it here to the United States. And you'll learn a little bit about that. But let's just get into it, Darly. So like one of the things that you were interested in is this idea of, okay, well, how do Americans think? How are they different? Mm-hmm. You know, you've certainly noticed the differences. So why don't you just set us up and kind of tell us sort of what your thoughts have been and then what your major, sort of questions are.
Yeah. So one of the things that I noticed first is when I got my samples. So we've been going for a long time trying trial after trial, getting to a good formula, a good formula that's low cost and easy to manufacture in big quantities, and then being able to expand with this back home. And I got some samples from those formulas, and I baked them in my house and brought you some samples, and I gave other people samples. And the first things that came up were what are the main ingredients? Are these gluten-free? Are these dairy-free? And yeah, I don't have a answer for that, that I am proud of, if maybe a Mexican where, was wondering, are these low cal? Yes, they are. These are for you. And so I guess I created my formula around how Mexicans consume and how Mexicans are educated around the word healthy, even like the oil part or like the fat part. I've perceived here that it's not the devil, and back home, my business partner and I, we're discussing, what type of fat we can use for it to be the texture, especially for the texture. So I was like, what about butter? Because I see that here, it's not bad, and she's like, no, we cannot use that. We need to use coconut oil because coconut oil resonates with Mexicans, like healthy. If it's coconut oil, then I am not getting fat. I am not putting stuff in my body that will make me, gain weight or get unhealthy. And there's a lot of like discussions around that, what type of oil is better or what type of fat, blah, blah, blah. But we don't get into like, we don't deepen into that conversation as you guys. Like here, it's a thing talking about that. And just my partner, he follows this carnivore diet and has so many arguments around that. So as the vegans, the vegetarians, pescatarians, and all these type of lifestyles and diets. So my question here is like, how am I going to be able to offer a product that can be a yes for all of these, because vegans can be fitness too. Pescatarians can be fitness too. Like everybody can be, but it's the diet that I get into to then offer this product. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let me just feed back and also get everyone a little caught up. So I'm just going to feed back what I think I heard and just correct me. So one of the things we're talking about here is Darly does healthy donuts, and they're ridiculously good, right? So she has essentially created these healthy donuts. Now, we all love donuts, but we all know donuts have this they're not the healthiest things on the planet. Arguably, they're the least healthiest things. So here comes Darly saying, I can actually make a donut that is delicious, that is actually healthy. So that's the first thing. So we're talking about Darly's donuts here. So this is one aspect of her expertise and the major drive of her business. So then it sounds like what you're asking is that in Mexico, essentially a healthy donut simply comes down to how many calories does it have. That's about as far as the individuals in Mexico sort of think about it. They just go, hey, how many calories? And you say, well, it's pretty low calorie. And they go, it tastes great, I'm in, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like what's happening here in the United States is you're thinking you're going to come here and go, well, they're low calorie and they taste great. And instead you're getting questions about like, well, what kind of fat is in there? And, how much sugar? And what kind of sweetener did you use? And what kind of excipients and binders are in there? And what kind of preservatives are in there? And all these questions. And then on top of that, it looks like you're wrestling with this idea that in the United States, there's all these different factions: the paleo diet people, the vegan people, the vegetarian people, the carnivore people, the, sort of low fat people, the high fat people, etc. Right? So then I guess the question around that is, how do you create a product that speaks to all of these individuals in America, right?
Right.
And what did I miss there in that?
I guess like we do see the macros, like protein, fat, and carbs, right? And calories. So that's like what our eyes, when I say us, like us fitness people back home, people that do know, like nutritionists, fitness coaches and all, the fitness related people go for these, the calorie amount, the fat, the carbs, and the protein.
Yep.
Other than that, it's not really, as important as it is here. There's the keto diet that it's more of a trending than anything. It's not like I am celiac and I need gluten-free products. It's more like, oh yeah, I just follow the keto diet because my neighbor, who she knows at all, is on that diet and she's lost weight. So people do not know all this information behind what it really is to know the ingredients and what they do to your body, etc., etc. So, and here I do see that is important. Yeah. That is really important.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with, so obviously this is a business discussion. So here's the way that I would begin to look at this. And some of this stuff, you all who are listening, and I want you to Darly, just push back on me, and you and I as friends, we'll just kind of go back and forth, because some of this is going to seem perhaps counterintuitive at first, and we'll just kind of circle around. But this is, in business, there's certain philosophies. So I have a philosophy. So the first philosophy I have is that you don't create a product for everybody. This is the first sort of major rule. And the reason why is because if you try to create a product for everyone, you're kind of creating a product for no one. In other words, marketing, in my way of looking at it, is it's convincing people, right? It is influencing people. And in a sense, it's a down payment on results. One of the things that we don't often talk about with marketing, and there's an actually really interesting study I'll share with you, Darly, and everybody here. But marketing, when you market, a lot of people don't love marketing, but marketing is one of these things where if you do it well, people are already convinced. It's like the placebo effect. They're already sort of convinced that this is going to work for them before they even get it. And if the marketing is good, the donut will actually taste better to them than it would otherwise. And if the marketing's bad, they already are developing perhaps not a good taste for the donut. So what a lot of people don't realize is that marketing actually is something that gives people, is partly responsible for the result that people get with the product. And so if we understand that, and the marketing is too vague or trying to talk to everybody, we're essentially not convincing any one group of people to the degree that we need to have a successful business. So that's the first thing I would say is you have to pick a market. Now, eventually, you'll get to the point where if you're successful enough, you'll probably have donuts for all types. There'll be a keto donut line. There'll be a paleo donut line. Maybe there's a carnivore donut line. It's just a big sausage with bacon wrapped around it. You know what I mean? So the idea, though, is you don't start there. The idea is you start with the group that you feel most comfortable talking to. And normally that's going to be the group that you're most passionate about, which is normally the group that is related to Darly. So that's the first thing I'll say. And actually the study that I'm talking about is a researcher by the name of Aaliyah Crum. It's a really interesting study. So what they did is they took a chocolate milkshake, and they had two groups of people. I think she's at Stanford University. They had two groups of people they gave this chocolate milkshake to. In the first group, they gave a low-calorie diet chocolate shake to the group. And before they gave them the shake, they measured hunger hormones, and they measured hunger hormones afterwards, and they asked them questions about, what did you think? How did it make you feel? Did it fill you up or not? So the next group, they gave a high-calorie chocolate shake to, right? So one was a diet chocolate shake. The other one was a high-calorie chocolate shake. And they did the same thing, measured hunger hormones before and after, and then looked at satiety and all these things. So obviously the people who took the high-calorie shake felt more full and had greater satiation than the people that had the low-calorie shake. The problem was there was no different in the shake at all. The shake was exactly the same. It was just labeled differently. And the label actually was able to change people's hormonal responses to these meals just by expectation alone. And what this tells us is that our marketing as business people needs to be in a way that is convincing enough to create this placebo response. So in other words, you have to come in and essentially, be in a position where you're like, my donuts do this and are for these people. So that's the first sort of rule. And there's a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. Have you ever read this book? Okay. So you know where we're going with this. And for those of you who don't know, Blue Ocean Strategy is essentially a book that essentially says when people think about businesses, they want to find a blue ocean, right? Instead of a red ocean would be where Darly goes into business and she goes to a place in the ocean where everybody is doing business, and it's just a free-for-all fighting. So in other words, she might go and be like, all right, everyone is in the gluten-free cookie business, and I'm going to go in the gluten-free cookie business. Now, the problem with that is there's so much competition there, she's going to have a hard time getting noticed. However, if she goes, I'm going to go into the gluten-free donut business, maybe now she gets a little bit of the recognition from the gluten-free cookie business, but now she's in a clearer ocean. And so the idea is to niche down into where you want sort of to get to, where you think your blue ocean is. And so I'll ask you questions about this now. What is it that how did you come up with the donuts? What was the original idea for these donuts in the first place?
Actually, now that you mentioned that book, I always have this reference with every single person that comes and works with my team. This is how I explain it. I am not selling, the cure for cancer. Like I am not, creating something that's never seen before. I'm selling protein. Protein is already out there in so many versions. But what I'm selling is the experience of it being fun, because us, athletes are always, watching what we eat, the amount of protein, the pre-workout, the post-workout. And there's a lot of people like you and I out there that, want that fun part too. So that was the idea of it all. And that's how I describe that we cannot put ourselves next to all the healthy bars out there, all the healthy, the healthy category, because if I go there, it's a blue ocean or a red ocean for me. It's saturated with a lot of other brands, so I am not competing with them. Like those are not my competitors. I am standing where I stand next to maybe, protein powder, the protein shakes or a protein bar, which is not the same. Although we offer the same thing, it's not the same product. I'm a donut, you're a bar, and you're powder. Yes. But we're offering the same protein intake.
Yeah. For those of you listening, so Darly already has positioned her donuts in an area that she knows people are interested in, because she knows that people eat protein shakes and she knows people want protein bars, and she knows protein's on a lot of athletes' radar and a lot of weight loss people's radar. She's creating a protein donut, which, by the way, is kind of tough to do, right? Like actually one of my favorite products that I eat every day is a protein waffle called Viking waffles. And they are doing really well as well, right? So the idea then is, if that is how, the reason why that story is important is because from my perspective, it informs where you go next, right? So then we start going, okay, so who is this person, right? So it sounds like there's this idea of like, look, sometimes you just want a donut. Might as well have protein with it, right? So it's basically this idea of, this is perfect for me, because I have a sweet tooth. I also know that if you give me a regular donut, I'm going to eat 6 of those things. Yeah. But when I have your donut, right, I have 1, 2, usually it's 1.5, and then but I'm full. And I'm like, okay, this fills me up. And the protein is what is filling me up. Right. So in a sense, then you have to kind of go, all right, now, and this is how we began the conversation around this. So we want to basically go, okay, how much does this cost? And how much would it affect the flavor and the formula and the end unit cost to make it gluten-free, to add coconut oil, to do all these things? So now that begins to play our role. So there's 2 conversations to be had here. One conversation is, what's my margins with the actual formula? How much can I tweak it without, making it cost ineffective? And for those of you listening to this who have never run a business, what you don't understand is that the margins on these things, I've done this multiple times, they are nowhere near what the average person thinks they are. These margins are not big. It takes a lot to bring a product like this to market, and you have to sell a lot of them before you really start seeing a difference. And so you can't just go mucking around with your formula. You have to prove that formula first. And I can see Darly's nodding because she is, probably in agreement with this. So then it's really about, if I have the formula and I know that's the best tasting formula and I know what it looks like, what are the tweaks I can make on the margins without changing my bottom line? And then who am I actually talking to, right? So you're probably not, the carnivore people are not anyone you probably want to talk to. They want bacon, they want a meat donut, right? Maybe one day you'll create that, but they're out in my mind, right? Now this doesn't mean I'm right, but I'm just saying, because, but from my perspective, and your business partner's probably like, I hate this guy, but like from my perspective, like a donut and a carnivore, like it's just not in their value system, period, unless it's, like a bunch of sausage links made in the shape of a donut. I don't know. And then I just go, well, the paleo diet people, these are people who, they're all about like ancestral living, primal people, same kind of thing. They don't really like processed foods in general, right? So you're looking for people who are active, who are not afraid of some degree of processed foods and want good tasting foods that are convenient based foods that taste good, that they can quickly have, that will not cause them to overeat, right? So from my perspective, if you're in agreement with that, then that becomes someone that you really begin talking to as, sort of an avatar. Now, that might be people who are in the gyms, slightly overweight, like, sweets and things like that. That might be people who are seriously fit individuals, love sweets, but it's definitely someone who is fit, out there, like looking for high protein foods, but also wants to have, like, wants to eat sweets and, wants those kinds of foods in their lives. And so to me, that begins a conversation then around, all right, these are people who prioritize protein and prioritize taste and prioritize convenience. What else would it be?
I mean, don't we all love, sweets at some point? We always have these cravings. So my market is so big, and I have so many indirect, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but not like direct competitors, because Krispy Kreme back home is one of my competitors. Like, although we're not offering the same thing, we are. It's a donut. So I'm selling to children, I'm selling to moms, I am selling to these other indirect clientele that also just consume me because of the flavor. So it's not just the protein. It all started with the protein and for a fitness, market, but now it's a lot of other type of people that I also, it's kind of like, it's difficult because from a marketing point of view, you can be talking to all of these people, but then you're talking to everybody, and just like you said before, you want to talk to and sell to everybody, but in the end, you're not selling to anybody. So like having a straight communication, and this is what it is for, and if you want to consume me, then good. But I am not focusing on selling to children, for example, right? That would change the whole idea of what it was made for in the first place.
But it sounds like maybe, right? It sounds like maybe you are, you can find a niche on, maybe you're not selling to children, but maybe you are selling to fitness mothers who are fitness oriented, who have kids, who want to feed their kids healthy food, that also know their kids are craving sweets, but they're more eating these things for them. So they're getting these donuts because they're also wanting something quick and fun. And they're mainly the consumer of the donut, but they can share it with their kids as well. So the whole point of that is, I'm not saying that's the market, but the whole point is to go, who's buying it now? Right? Who are my major people who are buying it now? And what is the story? And this is where that whole avatar of your customer comes in, where you say, what is the story that people are essentially having around these foods? Like, to me, I can see a mom just being like, I just get cravings and I want something sweet and fast. Sometimes I just want a donut. it's that whole thing where you're capturing in marketing. You basically go in marketing. The trick is to go, who are my clients already? And then what is their life like, and how do I speak to more of them? So let's do that real quick together. Like, if you had to say, who are the people that are mostly buying mostly buying this product or mostly interested in this product? And first, let's do it in Mexico, because I know it's slightly different. But who are they in Mexico? And then who has been expressing the most interest in the United States?
So I would say the profile is between the age of 24 and 45, mostly women and men that work out and care for their health, if I could describe it generally, right? And these people normally are active. So it doesn't matter what sport, it doesn't matter what discipline, they're looking for a recovery or for a pre-workout snack. And instead of going for that, boring bar that I love myself too, you get a donut, and it's more fun. So I would say around that age, males and females that are very active. And in the States, I have not really I could not tell you for sure what I've my conclusion. I just see a whole bunch of and I think my closest to my answer to that is you. When I brought you donuts and you loved them, I was like, I think you are my buyer persona. If I could describe my buyer persona here, it would be someone like you. I've met so many people, and I think Asheville too is very vaguely for this industry, and I might be wrong on that, but I wonder what if I went to another city, let's say Austin, Texas, Miami, or even Nashville, what would these people think? It's so different geographically speaking too. Yeah,
and let's keep playing with this, because I have a theory that if you got a good product and you got good marketing, you'll make it work wherever you go. And if you don't have the marketing worked out, even if you go to a big city, it's going to be problematic. So let's go through really quickly. Would you say the price point on this donut is high, medium, or low compared to the other things in the market? Let's focus on proteins and protein powders. Is it more expensive than a protein bar? About the same?
In Mexico, it's less expensive. If I was to sell it here, it would be about the same. Yeah, about the same. And I think here it's more, I would be, again, going in a very red ocean, just because the industry is not the same as it is in Mexico. It's not as developed in Mexico as it is here. You have so many brands here that offer so many different things. And we don't have that. We outsource from you guys. Everything is imported. So back home, I am almost the only donut brand. And here, I know I've done my research. I know that there's already small entrepreneurs making it happen in their own cities. And these are big cities. So I'm sure that there was a lot of planning around that. To me, the geography of where you start the business is very important. And I saw it back home too. I'm going in all directions, but just to make a point there. To me, I think it is important where you started, just because you're selling a fresh product, you're selling a food. So even if you found a way to package it and send it like that, you wouldn't be guaranteeing the freshness of the donut, right? So back home, what I did, and I started like that, was there's sending donuts everywhere and then dealing with quality issues, right? So I narrowed it down to the point where I'm just going to focus on the big cities, Monterrey, Mexico City, Puebla, and where the money is, and the people are not going to hesitate in oh no, this is too expensive. And that would be the case for smaller cities, So That's one point. And then, so here, it would be around the same price of a high quality protein bar. And I think that it would still be affordable, just because I've also seen that coffee shops here offer their regular muffins, their regular cookies, like with regular ingredients at $4-5 each piece. So I think.
So you're right there, you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry to break into the show, but I wanted to take a second to cover one of our sponsors and tell you all about Paleo Valley at paleovalley.com. These are the grass-fed sticks that I tell you all so much about, that all of my friends know I have on hand constantly. They are in my car. They are at my house. I keep them at my sister's home and my parents' house. I have these things everywhere because they are the simplest, most convenient whole foods protein supplement you can get. Almost like carrying around pure protein, low carb protein in your pocket. They also, these Paleo Valley beef sticks are the only 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef sticks on the market. They use organic spices. They are naturally fermented instead of using nitrates and nitrites that can be a problem in some of these cured meats. And they simply taste fantastic. Check out the original or the jalapeno. Those are my favorites. Please make sure you go over to paleovalley.com and visit. When checking out, use the code NEXTLEVEL for a 15% discount. Remember, our sponsors keep the show going by you giving them your patronage and spending your money on these high quality products. You actually do a few things. One, you're helping to support the podcast. And two, you are helping your health. And three, you are making sure that good quality companies like Paleo Valley can be out there doing their business, changing the world, making the earth better. One of the things you may not know about this is that grass-fed organic and grass-finished beef is doing something that is so utterly important for our environment, actually helping to repopulate the topsoil. A lot of people don't know this, but our topsoil is being extremely depleted, and raising animals, especially cattle, the correct way helps to get that topsoil back. This is one of the reasons why I love Paleo Valley. Not to mention it tastes fantastic, but they're one of these companies, like my other sponsors, Cured Nutrition and Organifi, that are doing the right things by the environment. I really appreciate everything they do, and I hope you will check them out. Thanks so much. PaleoValley.com. Use the code NEXTLEVEL. And now back to the show. So based on that, so I like that discussion, because from my perspective, when I look at businesses, and we all got a hint on sort of where Darly's mind is with this, and this also means you obviously know your business. I don't. I've never done a donut shop, right? But it sounds like to me like you're thinking, okay, this isn't something I make in my kitchen, package up, and send to different states. This is something that I have in a local city that I open up shop and or go to other shops and essentially say, do you want to offer sort of my donuts, right? And so from my perspective, there's different ways to look at that. So you go, but the marketing needs to be tight regardless. So then you go, where do we start, right? And from my perspective, if I was doing something like this, I would essentially go, okay, so what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to go to the places where, let's say, people who are fit, have expendable income, are sort of have time, and also probably are busy. So for me, the first things that come to mind are places like CrossFit, places like golfing, things like triathletes. These especially. And the only reason I say that is because CrossFit is a pretty expensive monthly thing for most memberships. They're going to have money. They are also sort of community, so they would be talking about anything they have and passing it around. Golfers as well have money, expendable time, tend to roll in groups, tend to talk a lot. Same thing with triathletes, right? So this is how my mind begins to work, right? And not to mention all of these types unlike a 25-year-old or 26-year-old or 27-year-old who just goes to Gold's Gym and is always like the next thing, whatever's the cheapest thing or whatever they love the most or whatever. They don't always stick with one brand. So at least from my perspective, and again, this is just me and you kind of shooting the shit here and just figuring it out, because you may disagree and some of the people at home listening to this may disagree as well. But the way I always think about it is I go, what kind of client would I want then? So I know it's a fitness client. I know it's someone who cares about their health. Then I go, well, if it's me, I want someone that has money, who's going to be a repeat buyer, who's not going to be like, how much are these things? Who also is going to be rolling and having and talking to a lot of different people. So those would be 3 right off the bat. Then I would be thinking about, okay, who are service professionals who work with these kind of people? So now I'm looking at things like, spas, coffee shops, people who cut hair, all of this kind of stuff. And I just for me with business, I throw all these things out first and I go, okay, where can I enter? And then the final thing would be like, well, I know people who, what if people are already going to pastry shops and coffee shops and stuff like that, and there's a lot of healthy, fit people who do that, and maybe I can place my product there, especially if it's a coffee shop near a gym or in a gym that would have this. And so this is the way that I would begin to be thinking about this. And the way I might prove it is I might go to the CrossFit Asheville or CrossFit Summit CrossFit or whatever gyms and show up there and ask the owner, hey, I have some product I would love to give for free to your clients. You get involved in that way, right? So, and maybe, for me, just knowing how I would be when I was a little bit younger, I would probably go to the different gyms, have memberships at these different gyms, make friends with everybody, and just sort of bring them as gifts to the owners and start there. I would probably also be going around to all the different, healthy or health-oriented coffee shops and things like that, see if they were interested. I would also be looking at going to different events and trying to get in those events when you kind of go to, the 5K run or the St. Patrick's Day run or all these sort of events, or the one you just did, you and your boyfriend just did the Spartan race, right? Like, so those kinds of things are what I would be sort of thinking about. And what it allows you to do is, because I think in business we oftentimes think of build it and they will come. It's the idea of like, I'll build the whole thing, I'll make the whole plan, and then people will come. Well, normally it never works that way, right? It almost always works like, let me go in a particular direction and let it unfold and let me learn about sort of my marketplace. So that's the way I would be handling that. And then if I thought it was Nashville, right, it's pretty close here, Charlotte and Nashville. Charlotte's a little closer. Nashville's about 4 hours away. Greenville's about an hour away, just probably similar to Asheville though. But Charlotte and maybe Nashville and maybe Atlanta, because I think Atlanta's 4 hours away, Nashville's 4 hours away, Charlotte's 2 hours away. That could be something that you could do once a month. You go to one of these other cities, you drop off, you make calls, you drop off some of these products and see, so this is your market research. You basically begin to see who's most interested in it while you're formulating your sort of marketing plan. And the marketing plan to me would essentially be having the conversation around what health and fitness people in the United States, even, the ones that aren't extreme. So obviously you're not going to be talking to the paleo diet, but what are they most interested in? And what they're most interested in the U.S. is there's a couple things they'll look at with this kind of stuff. They're going to look at macros, protein, carbohydrates, fat. They're going to look at ingredients. They don't really want a whole lot of ingredients in there. So it's like if there's 5 ingredients in there, that's better for an American than if there's 6 ingredients in there. They also want ingredients that are, relatively natural, or at least they know what they are. So for example, if you put something like erythritol in a donut, or allulose in a donut, some people may not know what that is, and so there might need to be a little bit of marketing of how good that is for you on your website, right? So to me, that's the stuff they look at. It would be like, a donut with 15 grams of protein or whatever it is, only 5 ingredients, and we use allulose as our sweetener, which has been shown in research to not spike insulin and have a more satiating response. And so you anticipate those sort of questions right away. And then if you can obviously make a gluten-free donut that tastes just as good as the regular donut and doesn't cost any more, like that to me would be, a useful move. But I would start with what already works, right? And then begin to sort of work backwards. But I do know that those are the things that we're looking at. And this is an industry I'm in. So, Darly and I were talking about, many of you know that metabolic.com is my company. And we are building products like this. So we have an awful lot of product research and development in this. And this is the trend that people who are health-oriented want. Very little, they want short ingredient lists that they can pronounce. They want, a calorie level that's not, excessive. And they want to know that they're, at least the illusion of, health. Now, right. With this particular thing, I'll say one more thing, and we'll see what all this brings up for you. But with this particular thing, the idea, from my perspective, there's several different ways to go with this, right? You can essentially go, this is healthier junk food, or this is, and the reason I put it that way is because you just want to make sure, right? It's just like, this, by the way, is not probably where you would never go, but I'm just for the full discussion here, there's different ways to look at this, right? Like, there is a whole market of creating junk foods that seem like junk foods that are healthier versions. And then there is a whole market of basically completely healthy versions of something that's a junk food. So you're a completely healthy version of something that's normally considered a junk food. So the only reason I bring that up is because then that informs your marketing. So it'd be like, Darly's Donuts are like your favorite protein bar on steroids, without the blah, 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 and without this. You see what I mean? So the marketing, you come up with short little marketing terms, hooks, that tell the whole story very quickly. And a hook really, in my mind, is just, you think X, it's really Y. So it'd be like, you think a donut is the worst thing for you. This donut is as good as, 2 eggs or something like that. Right. So you basically just change what people are thinking about in the marketing, but you have to decide which direction you're coming from first, right? You have to go through all those things and be like, some people want a healthy junk food. Some people want just something that tastes good, that's healthy and convenient. So I think you're in that category. But I'll shut up now and see what that brings up, and if any that's helpful for you or brings up anything. Yeah,
definitely. I think the communication's so important no matter what you're selling. For every single product, you need to know what your hook is, exactly how you said it. And I think that's going to be a huge, interesting challenge for me in the U.S. Because I do know where the hook is for my Mexican clientele. And
what is that, by the way?
That is, so I describe it this way. So food porn is always going to be a hook, no matter what that is. The first thing they're going to see is something delicious. Their brain is not, seeing if the chocolate is sugar-free or not. If you see something delicious on Instagram, you're going to stop there, like it, share it, save it, whatever. That's one. And then right after that one is the protein word. So this deliciousness is packed with protein. So these are my two main points in my communication back home. And that's what gives me all the clients. Yeah. I don't really need to, get into details with ingredients, with when to eat it, obviously it's something that I do communicate, but these are my main hooks back home. It looks so good and it has protein. Obviously you need to have the segmentation for that, for runners, indoor cycling, all these sports that I tend to target. And when they get hooked by not only the delicious part, but also the protein part, then that's a lead for me.
Yep.
That's how they come. I don't know if that works here.
No, I actually think it does. And I think you brought up a couple things that we should unpack, right? Because there's two ways to do this, right? There's one hook could be, everyone loves donuts, but they don't eat them because they're unhealthy, right? That's what they think. So then it's like, you think X, it's really Y. So everyone loves donuts, but we don't eat them because we think they're unhealthy. But what if you could eat a donut that kept you full and satisfied for hours after? And the way you would communicate this is that, imagine the most delicious donut, you can think of that is only 150 calories but feels like 300 calories and keeps you from eating 3,000 calories later. So it's this idea of playing with these things of like, if you eat this donut now, it's going to keep you eating a better diet later. And now that's going after a weight loss oriented individual, right? Or you can essentially say, the sport donut, so that could be your thing. Like this is a donut for people who are involved with sports, or this is a donut for people who are interested in weight loss. And you begin to really get clear with that, because from my perspective, that's the first thing that you want to do in the United States. You want to niche down to one group. So is it sports people or is it diet people? Now, based on the Blue Ocean Strategy concept, we know that the diet industry is probably a red ocean. So the sport concept might be a better place to start if you can get the marketing right? So then it's just like, donut, the sport donut, something that, and you develop a marketing around that. And then you basically figure that out by dropping that product into that environment and see how people respond.
That's so interesting that you brought that up, because that's one of the most repetitive things that I talk about when I speak to my team. We cannot just, think that we can talk to the healthy person. I tried so hard for so long just to stay on the fitness person. Let's talk to the fitness one. Fitness. And I do believe that so everything in the fitness industry, and this is just my point of view, I might be wrong, this is how I perceive it, is aspiring. So you aspire to be better every time, because it requires so much discipline. It's like the soul of the fitness, environment. You push yourself, you create a better version of yourself every single time you show up to do the work, right? For whatever that is, tennis shoes, sport wear, whatever you're wearing to go and do your sport, you are already putting on a suit that it's a better version of yourself. So that part, I think that I wanted to project that, that's what I want. And so if you eat my donuts, you're aspiring to be a better version, because you're just already choosing a better option for your health, and that's how I do it back home. I think that could work here. Like, I'm just trying to, get to know it more. I know Americans question everything. So I just want to be ready to have every single answer in the right way, I know you might prefer a gluten-free, but, I can have a solid answer for you, and not just be like, what do I say to this? Like, I can't. Yeah, that's true. I can't offer this, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's where I think it comes down to just being very clear on that. It's like ownership, and it is marketing. It's just like, nope, and just that's not your client. Like to me, it's like, we don't have a gluten-free option. So, and you just confidently say that, nope, these have gluten in them.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of people can handle gluten just fine. So you're in actually a market where most people reside, right? And you'll just have to, and another way to say that softer is the gluten-free version isn't out yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? The gluten-free version isn't out yet. But, for those who are, celiacs, they probably shouldn't have our donut. But what we found is that, and if this is true, I don't know, but you want to figure out if this is gentle on people's digestive system, and you ask questions like that, like people who have gluten, non-celiac gluten sensitivity or whatever, like how are these donuts on your digestive tract, right? So you can literally say in marketing that, we don't have the gluten-free option out yet, but what we found is that this donut is exceedingly gentle on people's digestive tracts. And you get that by simply putting it out there and always following up with surveys. So, for example, let's say you go to, the local 5K in Asheville or something like that, and you're handing out donuts and you get people's emails. Not everyone's going to give you their email, but let's say, you have 100 people stop by and 10 people give you their emails. And then you send out an email to those individuals and ask them to fill out a survey. One of those people, maybe two of those people, are actually going to fill out the survey. But that survey is going to give you really good information about your product. And I think most people, when they're building businesses, they forget. They're more in their head going, okay, here's what I think it is, and not gathering data. Even if it's two people, you want to begin gathering data around that. And the other thing I would say is, depending on how you, like if you go to a couple CrossFit gyms and after their classes, they're just crushing your donuts, that tells you something. And if you're having a hard time communicating with, just general healthy people, that tells you something. And if you're going to triathletes and they're coming off their bikes and they're just like, that was fantastic, where do I get more of those? That tells you something. So I think in the building phase, a lot of the questions that we as business owners have will be answered. The idea from my perspective is, and I was talking to Darly about this as well, which I'll probably be asking you for advice on this, Darly, but I'm going to be starting a coffee company. So the idea then with the coffee company is I have the idea of how I want to think about coffee and why I'm going into coffee. But then I have to let the market prove that I'm right or wrong and be willing to go in that direction. So I think based on where we are now in this discussion, from my perspective, I would be thinking about, okay, Americans, have these certain ways of looking at things. They're interested in ingredients. They're interested in number of ingredients. They're interested in the ability to pronounce ingredients. They're interested in the macronutrients. They're interested in the calories. In the end, you and I both know that all could be perfect, but if the donut tastes like ass, no one's going to want to have that donut, right? So ultimately it comes down to and by the way, if it's so good, right, this is the best thing they've ever tasted, they're going to be a little bit more lenient on the ingredients, right? So that's really what they're looking at. First, it's the way it tastes and cost. Then it's all these sort of other things. And then you have to essentially go, how deep do I want to go with that? So, already I can tell based on loving this product that there's not much in it. It is a pretty simple product. It is incredibly filling. It's got a really nice amount of protein in it, and it does not sacrifice on taste. It tastes to me like a real cakey donut that I would rather have than a protein bar, right? And so I think those are things and then the rest you have to just go, I'm not going to have that discussion with people. If they want gluten-free, I don't do that yet. If they want this, I don't do that yet. And that'll save you the mental, emotional turmoil of just going, no, that's not my client. If you're a vegan, a vegetarian, it's not my client. Unless you can go, oh, yeah, coconut oil versus, that might be that's something I would probably do. It's like, okay, well, to make the decision about coconut oil versus butter would come down to, well, are we using whey protein? Is there already dairy in it? Or, are we using a plant-based protein? Well, if we're using a plant-based protein, let's go with coconut oil because then we can call it plant-based, right? And then we can be like, this is a completely vegan, vegetarian-friendly, piece. But you can't get lost in that because ultimately your product is what it is, a standalone product right now. And I would say you don't alter it at all because it works. And you basically put it out in the market, figure out where that niche is, build it from there. Once you start getting income coming in, right, then you can branch off and develop another line. And then you slowly see how that works. See, I think the big mistake that I've seen people make in business is that they try to do it all at once. When I built my first company, so I basically came out and I was like, I want to be a wellness company, which meant I wanted to do this thing where I wanted workouts, nutrition, and mindset right from the beginning in 2004. And luckily, I didn't know any better. I just got lucky. But I was like, you know what? Workouts are what people want. It's the easiest. It's the lowest hanging fruit. I'll start with that. And I built a successful boot camp. Then I began to move into nutrition. So the workout, and I wrote a book based on that, right? So I built this boot camp, built this workout, wrote a book. The book became popular. In that book, I introduced some of the nutrition component. Then I opened up the nutrition side of the business. Now, I was right because the workout stuff still always sells better than the nutrition stuff. And then, the mindset is the hardest, sort of. And then off of that, I went into supplements and did different stuff. I had a protein shake for a while, protein cookies for a while, different things that I did that I was never as successful as you because it's a different mindset with that stuff. But I was happy that I built a base of people with exercise. And when I went into nutrition and added that on, a certain percentage of them came right over to nutrition. Versus if I tried to do all three at once,
right,
I don't think I would have been successful.
Right. Well, my vision with this brand, and before I continue what I'm saying, I can tell you right now that my two main assets right now is my product, so my formula, knowing that it works, that works,
Mm-hmm.
that I already have in the brand. My name, right? But it worked. It worked, and now that I have those two, they have the green light, so I just need to focus on my business model, right?
Yep.
Like how to make it work that can expand as I want to. And the vision with the whole brand and company one day is that to offer more, not just the donut itself, right? I think if we deepen more into this conversation of like what the potential is and like how to sell, like make it interesting, I need to sell country-wise. And I think you mentioned that to me before. If there was a way for that to happen, there would be a lot more, right, to the company. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. There's a product that we're developing that it's going to be sold in a powder version, but in a very creative way. And it's the donut powder. So, but that you can sell and you can ship, Yep. And I at least at this point, I don't want to sacrifice the quality and all the hygiene part of selling a food and a donut, my donut. Like I would not risk, shipping it again and seeing like those reviews that are not the best,
Yep.
I want to bake my donut and hand it to you directly for you to put it in your mouth, which is the experience that I want to offer.
But I want to jump in real quick and tell you about one of my favorite new products. And to start out, I want to ask you a question. If you had to follow your friends around who are not the healthiest in the world and see what they are doing, what would be the number one thing you would probably tell them to do to start? For most people, that's going to be drinking more water, right? This is something that we talk about all the time in health and fitness. It's almost as if we think of it as an afterthought now because obviously water is so crucial. However, we oftentimes get this wrong. For example, did you know that when it comes to hydration, just drinking water can make things worse? Most people don't know this. Why? Partly because most people are over drinking water and under consuming the electrolytes that help water do its job. What we don't realize is that hydration is not just about water. It's about electrolytes, the minerals in there, as well as getting that water into the cells. And so you do not want to be over consuming water if you're not getting your electrolytes right. And this opens up a whole new discussion because most people are not getting their electrolytes right. For example, did you know that too low sodium is an issue? just as much, if not more so, than high sodium. In other words, what we want if we're going to get the right electrolytes is to get the right amount of sodium and potassium and magnesium in the Goldilocks zone. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We want it just right. This opens up a whole other thing here too, because people who are exercising, doing sauna therapies, doing low carb diets are disrupting and losing lots and lots of their electrolytes. For example, when insulin is not around in low carb diets, you will excrete lots of sodium. In other words, under that state, exercising, low carb diets, all these things, you actually need more sodium. And so if you're somebody who's been just drinking water, not paying attention to electrolytes, and also feeling fatigued, feeling like you're underperforming, not sleeping right, getting cramps, twitches, headaches, any of these things, then you are probably dealing with an electrolyte issue. This is where the product Element comes in. This product has been a game changer for me and many of my patients and clients. This is a rehydration electrolyte beverage, basically. It is a powder of electrolytes formulated with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams magnesium without the added sugar and other nonsense that comes in beverages like Gatorade. This stuff is basically a rehydration beverage on steroids. It is the thing that is going to replenish your electrolytes in the right ratios, decrease fatigue, really correct chronic dehydration. And by the way, many people are dehydrating themselves, becoming hyponatremic, low sodium, when they're consuming too much water. You need your electrolytes on board, especially if you are someone who is losing lots of sodium and other electrolytes through low carb diets and lots of exercise. This is where Element comes in. Element is a new sponsor to the Next Level Human podcast. I cannot recommend this product enough. I have been using this stuff for months now, and I have immediately seen changes in my energy levels. I feel like I'm operating on a whole other level, and I have seen this as being the primary thing that people who have been using Element have been telling me, that their fatigue is getting better, especially fatigue that comes after very intense workouts that involve lots of sweating and lots of intense output from the nervous system. Please check out Element. Use the code NEXTLEVEL. DrinkElement.com. That's DrinkLMNT.com. DrinkElement.com, and let's get back to the show.
So, yeah.
So now think about this as a marketing strategy then, right? So this is how I would be looking at it. So now everyone can have your donut because you're now packaging it in a way that they can get it. And then the donut itself becomes the marketing. So now if you go out and capture everything you're doing out in this community, right? Because let's look at different ways of doing it. Buying a brick and mortar store, in my mind, is what most people would do, and it's probably the worst thing to do right off the bat. And the reason why is because there's no proven market yet for this. So what you're doing, I think, is mitigating risk. So what you do is you bake these things, you go out, bring what you baked to different places, you record what's going on. So you're videotaping yourself making the donuts, seeing the deliciousness, seeing people smile on their face when they're doing the donuts, putting all this stuff all over your media, all over your website, etc. That then pushes people to go, I want these donuts. Well, if you're not local, you can actually get the donuts here. Right. That also brings into videos of you using the powder, making all kinds of different donuts, putting up recipes. It makes a lot of sense from this perspective, and you may find that you never need to, essentially build the donut business up here, that this powder actually allows you to make enough revenue to open up your shop. Correct. Right? And so to me, that's the right approach with this, because to me, it's like there should be several different avenues, and there's lots of different ways to go here. I mean, you can do all kinds of things with this. Like you could sell coffee with it. Coffee and donuts goes perfect together, right? So you begin saying, how can I add on to this business that makes sense? You may actually find out you're shipping this delicious coffee along with this, and people are like, I really love, Darly's coffee. I like her donuts, but I really just love her coffee too. And you slowly do that as you then one day now have a coffee shop that is,
right.
the Darly store. And, it sounds like you're thinking along these lines. And I think this is the better way to approach this, because it's basically a three-pronged approach, right? The approach is, well, I've got something that I can sell anybody if they want it. I am exploring the market here in, by doing events and selling them where I can. And then to me, the third one would be looking for individuals who, existing business owners, like this would be a big piece that I would be doing, existing business owners that would want to sell your donuts. And to me, that's gym owners, CrossFit places, golf clubhouses, these types of things, and not just coffee shops, but obviously coffee shops. And that's how you begin the process while getting very clear on your avatar. Because we just started the discussion, right? Like the avatar is the person who you go, okay, so it's basically my avatar is Jade with a wig, maybe. You know what I mean? It's a woman like Jade, who's got a lot, who loves sweets, who's very fitness oriented, right? So it's like you got to get that avatar, like, and just be like, this is who it is. And from my perspective, you start going from, in that direction. And actually, so now I'll ask you a question, because just to kind of bring home, what would you do how would you do this if I was to ask you, okay, Darly, I'm going to, start a coffee company. What would be your steps in that process for me? Like, what advice would you say, okay, here's what you have to think about? Because in you educating me, you're going to see things that you'd want to do. And in me educating you or giving my feedback, I'm going to see things that I'd want to do. But I'm curious, what would you do?
I guess I would ask you what the difference between your coffee and all the other coffees that are, 5 minutes away in the supermarket are, what is your added value? And I've seen brands that do offer something, I don't know if that's the name of the brand. There's a strong coffee, I think, that I found out about it when I was back home, and I even got it shipped to Mexico to try it.
Yep.
And this coffee offers MCT oil, stuff to recover, and cognitive, things there that help you focus or whatever. So it works for me as a pre-workout and also as my quote unquote Adderall for the day, so that for me made sense,
Yeah, I love that, because that's exactly where I was hoping you would go with this, and I think it's a good lesson. So listen to you all who are listening, who are thinking about business. So here's a business owner who's built already a successful business, and immediately she's saying, where's your sort of blue ocean? Right. And so for me, it's really interesting, because there's two ways to look at this. There's one way where you start playing in this coffee plus game, which I don't want to do. Or there's this other thing where you essentially, here's the idea behind this. Now, whether this works or not is all proven in the marketplace. But to me, coffee is the second most highly traded commodity on the planet after oil. So there's obviously a demand for it, right? So that's the first reason I'm going, coffee's low-hanging fruit. The other thing I know about coffee is that once people find a good coffee, they tend to stick with that coffee. I also feel like coffee is the way we connect. It becomes part of identity. If you're a coffee lover, it becomes something you identify with. And so the angle here, in my mind, there's two ways you can have an angle. It could be like, I'm going to add extra things to the coffee, or the coffee is going to tap into your identity.
Right.
So if Darly loves coffee, and she also sees herself not just as a coffee drinker, but as a good human who prioritizes kindness and generosity, then Next Level Human Coffee is what you would want to be drinking, because Next Level Human Coffee, the whole marketing is going to essentially be going out and doing good deeds. So it's basically good people drink, good people, good coffee, right? So it's this idea of the whole marketing is the coffee. There's no difference. Like taste wise, you could sit down and be like, I don't know, it's good coffee, but I like my coffee too. The whole idea is to tap into someone's identity the same way you're tapping into someone's identity of like, Jade is a fitness guy who also does not want to be someone who doesn't enjoy food. I want to go have a drink with you as my friend. I want to go eat good food. I don't want to just be crazy. So Next Level Human Coffee is this idea of like, you're a coffee drinker. You're also a good human, a kind human, a generous human, someone that wants to do good in the world. And so the coffee not only gives to, let's say, ocean cleanup and all the things that I give to, right? The organization goes, we are helping the environment. We are, helping, that would be a big one. I'm also big with ACLU and, equality in the world and women's health issues and stuff like that. So Next Level Coffee would be doing that stuff as well, giving its profits to that. But it would essentially just be doing good things. And the marketing would be going around. And like, for example, when I go, people think I'm crazy, but this is just sort of what I do. But when I go out to eat, I usually leave $100 tip. I've done really well monetarily now, and I want to share that. I want to give back in that way. And I just want to leave, like the Next Level Human card that says, thank you for what you do. Because I don't think people get, they don't realize the difference that they're making. And so if you're someone who's oriented that way and you're listening to me and going, what a cool concept. Of course, I want to interact with a company that is doing good deeds in the world and just helping people. And I'm also a coffee drinker. You're going to want to drink this coffee. So that's my blue ocean strategy with the coffee. And I do think as business owners and people thinking about business, we sometimes miss that people will identify with our donut or our coffee or whatever product we're giving, not just because of what it will do, but what it says about them and their identity. If you're somebody who's like, I'm a fitness person, I also like to have fun and sit and eat good food, and it's part of my culture. I'm Italian. It's like I want to sit and have wine and food, and I want to have fun. And that is ultimately what you're, sort of saying. It's a big piece of it. So that is part of the strategy. And that's part of, to me, it's mainly the strategy out in the world of like when they go to your website and they go to your social media platforms and all that, that's the vibe they're going to get from Next Level Human Coffee and Darly's Donuts.
Right. And you know what? You just made me think of the importance of the values behind a company. It's obviously who owns it that their values has to align to what they're creating, I am a huge believer that my values have to be projected and reflected on my business, on my quality, on my service to my clients, If not, it wouldn't make sense. I know that businesses, and this is what we're taught all the time, and there might be some truth behind that businesses are cold. Businesses have to be, aggressive and yes, but no. Yes, but no. Like I really enjoy, seeing the smiles behind my product, the reviews behind the legit, genuine reviews, not buying reviews or buying followers or blah, blah, blah. So that really is what measures what your company is worth, and not in a monetary way, like not in a financial way. If not, what I'm saying is the appreciation and the loyalty and the real client,
Yeah. And as we wrap up this conversation, let me ask you sort of one final thing here, because I think I think it's important. Tell me the story of Darly and her donuts. So why did you create this product? What was the pain point for you?
It was my own personal experience. I always wanted to have something of my own, but I didn't know what exactly. And I've been working and living around the world. And while I was living in France, I or this was back in Brazil when I first started working out. But I was so young, and when you're young, you just want to have fun. You know, you don't stick to a healthy lifestyle. You're just out drinking, partying, all the good stuff. But I did want to start working out. So that's when I met my first fitness coach. And I just I wasn't taught anything about like how my body was going to feel. And by this, I mean like the hunger that you have after working out. You just like become Godzilla. You want to eat everything. So if there's no balance on that, then yeah, you're going to have some interesting results, which I did. So I was gaining a lot of weight, not seeing any results. I was so confused. And then I moved on to a second fitness coach, right? He's now very famous here in the US. His name is Duncan Lucas. I don't know if you've heard of him, but at that time he didn't have a lot of followers, and I happened to train with him, and I saw a lot of results that I loved. But the part that I wasn't like super happy about was the diet. Like I was seeing a lot of results now because I now had a diet and a routine, a gym routine, but I wasn't eating any sugar at all. So obviously I was craving, especially when, you know, my menstrual cycle would come. I wanted chocolate. I wanted sweets, and I love cereal too. That's one of my treats almost every day. So I was like, what do I do? I love my body now, but I don't feel happy. So I started, you know, going online, seeing all these like healthy stuff that I could order, and I would even like have it shipped from the US to France just to have like a good, you know, guilt-free snack. And this is all in my head. I'm creating these stories in my head, right? Because I don't know. Eventually I found in Canada a donut brand, protein donut brand, where I picked up the idea from, and I wanted them to ship their donuts too, as I have a lot of clients that want the same thing. It's like, please ship some to France, and they're like, that's obviously impossible, you know, like they were also small business owners, so I was so sad. And I knew that didn't exist in Mexico. So I was like, what if I started that? And then my mind was like, oh, what about a protein ice cream? What about a protein cereal? Because I love cereal. So all these things for me, you know, like what would Darly be a number one client to? And oh my God, the time that it took me to come up with a formula, because yeah, there's a lot of chefs, bakers, you know, nutritionists that are out there that can just come up with a formula in their kitchen, but is that affordable to sell to clients? You know, that is that low cost where you can profit out of. So it was a whole year of trials, and I had a full-time job. I was studying 2 master's degrees together at the same time, and being in the lab with a food engineer, trying over and over and over new ingredients, new quantities, and I just, at the end, I knew what I wanted. That was a donut with certain amount of protein. And even like the engineer was like, you're crazy. Like, you're asking almost for the impossible. I'm like,
no, I'm not.
Let's just keep trying one more time. So yeah, those were really very hard times, but I learned so much, and I've learned so much throughout all these 3 years that I've been owning my own business, and the formula has just been improving every time. Like now I know what my client keeps, you know, looking for, and now we have more protein, now we have toppings, now we have like sugar-free glazing. So, and all of this is hard data. Like this is not me, you know, assuming stuff.
It's you getting feedback.
Exactly. And I could never sell something that I could not eat myself, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, so let's go. So just to wrap this up, final thoughts on this. To me, here's where this all comes together from a business point of view, from my perspective. So to me, the marketing has to be, it's about Darly. It's named Darly. So your story has to be in there. And the way I always see this is I go, the mechanisms for the marketing have to be a powerful hook, right? And that hook is a hook that, you and I will talk about, but it's something that it has to be so catchy and so powerful that it makes people stand up. And so a hook for everyone listening is just, you think X, it's really Y. Some kind of powerful turn on its head. So that's the first thing I think that sort of needs to happen. The next thing after a hook is an emotional anchor or story, which normally will then be your story. So I can see this idea of, this young fitness person who's getting results and then doesn't get results because they're overeating because they love sweets. And they're like, why can't I just have what they want? And then they're in the kitchen for years trying to figure it out. That's not it. And people are getting emotionally attached to this idea that I came up with the perfect solution so you don't have to, right? So that's the hook, the emotion / story, and then there's got to be sort of the framework there that is sort of the secret sauce, right? It has this particular macro. It stops cravings because of this. Maybe it's like the whey protein lowers cortisol, the fiber and the protein, adjust GLP and GIP. There's a story there that basically means the major way this works is it suppresses hunger, and here's how, right? So then people go, oh, okay. So now they've got, this hook that got their attention, this emotional story that they're just like, I dig this person, I can relate to their story, and I need the solution that they solved for. Oh my God, there's some cool science here. There's a little bit of framework around it. And then there's sort of the call to action of like, okay, now here's how you get it. In your case, it would be like, you can order this, bag of protein powder, and I'll give you, a certain amount of recipes to go along with that or whatever. And that's the way it begins, right? So you basically formulate that marketing plan. Then in the meantime, you're out on the street in Asheville, Nashville, Charlotte, or whatever it is, in times that you have, delivering the actual product, gathering feedback, seeing if, a good synchronistic connection comes in where you end up in a local coffee shop, or you end up with a local business owner who you are piggybacking off of to develop content and all of this kind of stuff while you are essentially building, the business. And then once you get enough traction, you may actually find, the protein powder, that is being used to actually for home people to make the donuts is really taking off. And I'm going to go in that direction. And rather than open up a shop, now I'm going to do my protein ice cream, or I'm going to do, this other piece, or maybe I open up a shop as well. And the reason that it works better that way in my mind is because you begin figuring out what works, and you also start going, maybe I don't want to run a shop. Maybe that's too much. Maybe what I want to do is I want to, start other products that I can ship. But to me, this is the way that, you begin, sort of the process. And there's obviously a lot of different tools and techniques around that, but that's where I would start the marketing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of small business owners, and I include myself, that think that they know what the business model is going to be like until you see your own business speaking for its own. And then you need to be, listening to that.
100%. I would say that every single business I've ever started, I've given up on doing a business plan now. It's more like structured flexibility. I'm like, I think it's going to look like this, but I'm just going to fire and aim later. And I think what most people do is they aim, and I forget who said it, but it's the famous saying that says most people think it's ready, aim, fire in business. It's really fire, aim, ready. So it's, you build it as they come. You don't build it so that they come. And I think that's part of where you're at with Darly's Donuts and where I'm at with sort of next level human coffee. We have the idea. You've already had a big success here, right? So you've already got this successful in Mexico. Now it's just coming and pivoting and saying, how do I need to market it differently in the United States? But anything else you want to share or we should go through?
I don't think so. This was a very interesting conversation, and I'm so happy that I got to talk to you about all
Yeah,
of
of course.
this.
You're brilliant. I mean, this is like, to me, let's just not forget what it takes. Like, it's huge, Darly. You know this. It is huge to build a business like you've built in any country, right? And now you're doing it in the second country. I've only ever done, and I don't know how many languages you speak. So what? Brazil, Portuguese, obviously. Then you speak Portuguese.
I speak Spanish. That's my first language. English, French, some Portuguese, and some Italian.
That's amazing. So who knows? Maybe Darly's Donuts are going to be in all those places. But you're brilliant, my friend, and thanks for hanging out.
Thank you so much, Jade.